What's up, guys? We are back. The Fitness Profit Multiplier here, teaching you how to make more. If you're watching on YouTube, oh, it's getting blurred out. It's getting blurred out, but more money.
Is that Monopoly?
How can you make more profit in your fitness business? I don't know. It's blurring out.
Can you pull that out of your grandma's Monopoly?
Right
no.
Underneath my bed, man. That's where I keep it.
Why do you have 10 grand in cash sitting there?
No, it's fake money. So I can't say because it keeps
freaking it keeps blurring
out. But it's fake money. It says copy on it. But I'm running a promotion for old clients to come back, and I'm gonna tell them, hey, look, here's money for you to come back, kind of thing.
Oh, like you're giving them a discount on their first month or something?
Yeah, first month back. So I'll say, okay, get your first month back. Here's $200. Do you want to take 200 off? But I think
which is really a good play, by the way, to run, guys. So if you don't take anything else from this podcast, it's a good play to run a discount on the first month of an old client coming back.
But it's funny because it actually looks like real money. Like I have so many stacks of them, but I gave a stack to my wife yesterday. I'm like, listen, you've been so good to me, baby. Here's some money. And she didn't even look at it. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like she's just holding it like I really gave it to. It's good. It says it keeps blurring, but it literally says copy. I don't know if you can see that. I keep blurring out, but it says copy on it. But yeah, so it's just for a marketing play. But we're talking about profit, man. So I figured I'd take out the Benjamins and talk about profit. Jimmy's like, why do you have 10 grand right by your computer? It brings me luck. It brings me luck. How much profit should we be making in our fitness business, man? That's the question. And that's the story that we're talking about now. So what's going on?
The reason why this topic is important to me is because there's so many gym owners out there that have a decent business, right? They're making 40, 50K a month in top line revenue, but they're taking home $1,500, right? You should not be making less than your coaches. Tripping over your dog?
Yeah, my dog is here.
It's dog day, man.
I have a lab Great Dane mix. He's freaking gigantic, and he loves to play in between my legs. Like he'll literally come in between my legs. Like that's what he's doing now. He's doing figure eights. So he's so gigantic. He pushes me over. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm dancing. So
well, when you're small like Anthony, you know the dogs just push you over.
Yeah, dude, this dog's like 150 pounds. He's no lightweight. He's not like your dog who's like 20.
Hey, my dog's 50 pounds. Okay, let's not. I don't have a little Yorkie sitting around. But beside the point, dog lovers podcast here. Okay, so a lot of owners, right? They may have a great business, and they may talk to you about their top line. You're like, oh, you want to know how to run a fully outsourced gym? That's the thing I'm seeing now. A fully outsourced gym that makes 40 to 50K a month.
Really?
Fully outsourced.
That's a thing? I didn't ever saw that before.
I'm seeing this online all the time, and I'm like, what is this about? And I'm like, a fully outsourced gym doing 40K. Okay. I see you, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, fully outsourced 40. What does that mean? What does the margin look like? Because the margin is where things are important, and the efficiency of your business to get that margin up to a level where it's actually a sufficient margin for you to be successful, right? And we have some certain numbers that we like for people to get to profitability wise. Because if you're not at these certain numbers profitability wise in terms of percentage, what are you doing this for, right? This is a service-based industry, which should be relatively high margin, right? Because the top line revenue is not going to be one of those things that's going to be a $5 million business, right? Because
unfortunately, it's not.
Unfortunately, that's not the vehicle that we're in, right? You don't open a gym and you don't sell a bunch of coffee, right? And by the way, the average revenue of a Starbucks is 900K. So they're not even.
Is it really?
Yeah, the average is 900K, right? But you're not opening a Chick-fil-A, right? Chick-fil-A's do 4 million. What's that?
I love Chick-fil-A.
Oh, I've never had it actually.
You never had Chick-fil-A?
No, we have a few around here, but I've never eaten it.
Oh, dude, it's pretty good, man. Their food is really good. Their grilled chicken bites are really good. I'll take you there when you come to New York and visit me one day. When you've been promising me you're coming, but you never come. So I came to you. So
I know Anthony's sad. I'm not making my trip priority. The red eyes, man, they're just brutal. I know you took them to get here. I gotta
twice.
just twice. I know.
Yeah, there and back.
So,
but
they're horrible. Yeah, but you're not a Chick-fil-A, right? So you're not going to do 4 mil in 8 months, right? It's not a business like that. So since you're not going to do 4 mil, your margins need to be high enough for you to get a decent amount of return for the effort and the energy that you're putting in to this business, right? It's service based. So what do the margins look like? What should you be shooting for? And at what stage in your business should you have these different margins happen? Because at different stages in your business, your margins are going to be absolute crap in the beginning, right? You got to put a lot of money into ads. You got to pay your rent. You got to get staff going, all this stuff that needs to happen to get the machine running properly. But there's certain benchmarks in revenue amount that it only takes a certain amount of that revenue to operate the business, right? And we want to talk about what those percentages look like, what you should be shooting for, and what's the indicator of a healthy business so that you're not starving on profitability and you're not paying your staff. You don't have such a low staff that you're not able to manage that business with your staff there to keep it running. So we're going to talk about that.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is how you actually figure out your gross profit margins and how do you figure out those numbers? Because there's a bunch of things. It's not just one simple formula to talk about. So let's talk about that, man. How do you figure out profitability? Period. I mean, I know how to figure it out, but I'm talking to them.
Yeah. How do you figure out your profitability? Right. So when you're looking at your bank statement, right? So it's going to come in. And first off, you generate a certain amount of revenue, right? And in a service-based industry, at least in my state, there's sales tax on everything, right? So you're going to get all this revenue, you got to pay your sales tax, right? So you get all that revenue coming in, that's great. Then you got to pay your staff. Then you got to pay your rent. Then you got to pay for your software and some stupid knickknacks and this and that and all this crap that comes into your business that accounts for a certain amount of money. There's always going to be each month on average somewhere between 500 and 1,500 bucks of revenue, right? So so when we look at this $1,000 to $1,500 in revenue that you're going to spend on something random, you have to account for that, right? So you have these percentages that you're going to look at. So you're going to look at the percentage of payroll you're going to pay, the percentage of rent in regards to your top line revenue. And we're looking at these monthly. And then you have a little bit of operating costs, right? There's some other things you got to pay for. We talked about software. We talked about the $1,500 you're going to spend every month that's just random, right? And all these things are going to add up to be your expenses, right? You got to subtract all those expenses from all the revenue that's coming in. And what you're left with is then your profitability. Each month is going to be a little bit different because one month you might buy a bunch of wholesale supplements. One month you might have some churn that you got to figure out, right? So it's always going to be different. But you calculate it, you have to take your top line revenue. That's not the money you're making. So many gym owners or business owners that just get into it think, oh, I'm making all this money every month in top line revenue. And at the end of the month, they're like, why am I poor? Right? Because it's like, I'm making all this money. Why am I poor? Why can't I afford this? Why can't I afford that? I'm making all this money in my business. Because if you have $1 million business and you're spending $1,001, you've made no greater impact in your own life, in your own wealth, and your own financial state, right?
So Jimmy, one of the things that people talk about, especially when figuring out gross profit margins, is saying that you have to take out your net owner benefits, right? That comes out of that number. So if your total expenses, I'm just going to use rough numbers here. So you make 40,000, the business expenses is 35, but you pay yourself 5,000 out of that. The expenses are really 30,000. That's like a formula that I've heard. I don't know how you calculate it, but that's how what people talk about too.
You take your net owner benefit out of
the profitability of the business, because technically it's your profit.
Right.
I don't do it that way, but that's what people will say.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at profit from the business, you want to look at it from a couple of different ways. Now, if you're trying to sell your business, it's a little bit different. But if you're in the position where you're owning your business and you're just going to hang out and you're just going to own it and let it run and run it, I mean, your profitability is what's left over at the end of the month, right? Really. And if what's left over at the end of the month is $1,000, there's something wrong, unless you made a big reinvestment or you moved the gym or something like that, right? Some event. Other than that, it's not where you want to be. Now, the way that you can structure it in all kinds of different ways. Some people pay themselves just a K1 distribution. They don't pay themselves a salary for operating their business. Most places, if you're an S corp, LLC is an S corp, which is the most tax advantage structure for a business. Well, you guys probably should be. If you're not, you should probably talk to your accountant. But LLC as S corp basically means you're a W-2 employee, and you take K1s on top, right? That's the most logical structure for what we do. So LLC is an S corp, okay? But I count that as profit. So when I look at it, I count the amount that I pay myself as profit as a salary, my salary, which is just enough salary to be a market, like a clean amount for the market for what you would pay somebody to do your job to operate, right? And then on top of that, there's profit distributions, right? Those profit distributions come to the owner, and I calculate all of that money that I take into my own personal account as profitability of the business, especially because of the fact that right now in our business, we don't really need another staff member, right? So I'm not doing so much work in my business that my salary is what I would be paying somebody to do my work, because my work is all outsourced to my team at this point. So it makes a lot more sense for me to count it as profit. If you're doing a lot of work in your business, you probably don't want to count that salary as profit, because you are an employee of your business at that moment. So for it to function as an entity, it needs you. But for it to function as an entity, if it doesn't need you to function, and you're just doing kind of vision stuff and top end kind of things, then I would count that as profit, right? But what we're really talking about here, guys, is what are you taking home at the end of the day and what makes sense? Because that's what we got into this business for. We didn't get into the business of personal training to make all the rules and make the same amount of money or less money than we were working for somebody else, right? So what is the percentage, right? What percentages do you like to see, Anthony, in terms of profitability?
Well, for me personally, I like to do exactly what you just said. What comes out of the business every month and goes into my pocket is what I want, right? That's like the ultimate reason why I did this. Like all these numbers and vanity metrics, they're all fine and dandy, right? Like it's, okay, I'm this profitability, I'm that, but if I'm able to put in my pocket, 20 grand a month, I'm doing good. I'm very happy. I'm living well. Like it's worth it for me to get out of bed in the morning and push this thing to grow, and that's kind of how we stumbled upon that number. That's like our tagline, like helping gym owners put 20K of profit in their pocket, because we believe that is the number that really will differentiate your lifestyle and your life, period. If you run a gym, if you run a very, very profitable gym and you actually care about helping people, that should be the benefit and more that you are making from your business every month. So that's like what I really, really look at. Like if you don't want to, if you're not a numbers guy like I am, and you just want to look at one thing, how much money are you taking home every month? That's the most important number. And really, really focus on trying to bring that up and pull all the levers on both sides of it. What can I do on my own? What can I cut out? You know, because sometimes this, if you have a $200 subscription to something that you're not using and you cut that out, that's profit that could come into your pocket at home. However you want to divvy that up, you pay yourself on salary, you know, this or that, the other thing, doesn't matter. But as long as you're cutting that and putting it in your pocket, that's all the better. So that's like how we came up with that tagline, because Jimmy and I both believe that that 20K number really differentiates your life and will change your life. But anything more than 10 grand is always good, but that 20 grand really will change your life as a gym owner. That's what we believe that you should be taking home every month. So if you're not taking that amount home, then you need to really look at some of the things going on in your business. Is the expenses too high? What am I paying for every month? What's coming out? Do I have a subscription to this? I have a subscription to that. So I'm pretty profitable. My business is profitable. Obviously, we talked about that so many times. But I have a subscription for an email service that's $65 a month. And every time I see that ding, I'm like, ah. And it's just $65. It's not really a big deal. But every time I see that ding, I'm like, there's got to be a way I can cut that expense out. Like I'm a real tight ass when it comes to like my expenses and what's going out. But that's also what leads me to be very, very profitable. So you have to look at everything like that with a fine tooth comb. You know, what am I like in my business when I'm investing in things, when I'm doing things and I get an instant return, like an ad. Like if I'm running an ad, like that money from that email service, every time I see that ding, I'm like, I could be putting that in, you know, an ad, you know, and even though it's a little amount of money, you just have to look, you have to fine tooth comb everything because that's hidden money. So if I have a $200 subscription to something else, I have a $65 subscription to this, and stupid stuff that I bought, right? That's like $500-600 that I could invest on getting more clients coming into the door, which will give me more of a return. So I look at profitability very, very differently because I've had nothing growing up. Like I was a really, really poor kid growing up. I started my gym in my garage. I started it on very, very low, you know, just me hustling. My hard work got it to where it is today. So every dollar spent has to be a good investment for me. If it's not a good investment and I'm thinking about it the way I am, I got to do something to change it. But that's just the way my mind works. But it allows me to keep running the business very, very lean, which will allow me to take more profit home, which is ultimately what we're in this for anyway. Like you said, you can have $1 million gym, and we know guys who have big gyms that make big, big money, but take nothing home. What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of that? And again, there are net owner benefits. You know, some guys, the gym pays for their cars and a cell phone or this or that or the other thing. And those are net owner benefits. And that's part of being, you know, part of profit. But aside from that, you need to be, you know, think about that, guys. Seriously, think about that. 20K a month. If you took that home, what would that do to your life? You know, I joked in the beginning about giving my wife a stack, right? Like I joked about that. But what would that stack do? It's almost like we're going to give you 2 of these stacks every month. Like here, this is for you. What are you going to do with that? How does your life change? Are you able to take a vacation finally? Can you make more investments with that money? Can you go buy rental real estate? Can you go purchase a building for your facility? Can you open up a second facility? These are the things that profit allows you to do. That security blanket, you know, saving money for a rainy day type of a thing, and having backup, maybe buying a nice car, or, you know, just doing things you normally wouldn't ever do before, because now you have the ability to do that. So that's my spiel. I look at profit from a different way. Like I said, fine tooth comb every expense that goes out. If it's not bringing me more money, I have to think about cutting it and figuring out how I could make me more money. Because again, when you get to the point that Jimmy and I are at, sometimes those little things make a difference. Yeah. And even in the beginning, they do make a difference. I shouldn't say it like that, but you know, when you get to a certain point, they make a difference when you pull those little levers here and
there. And I couldn't agree more. I think that all gym owners in any capacity have the ability to be making 15 to 20 a month in profit, right? Anybody that follows in any market follows the tenets that get you to that point, 15 to 20 is totally doable for anybody in any market. If you're not getting to that point.
It's not a pipe dream, guys. Like, we didn't pick that number randomly. Like,
No.
we said that for a reason. It's not a pipe dream. Like, some guys hear that and they're like, oh yeah, right. But it's the truth. If you pull the levers on both sides of it, it can happen. Yeah. It really can happen. Go ahead. I cut you off. Sorry.
It puts you in a category where, you know, I mean, when you look at it, a 35-year-old, if you're 35 or younger, and you make, I think it's 16 a month. I think that's the math. No, it's a little more than that. Anyway, you make 200 a year. You make 200 a year, and you're 35 or younger. You're a top 1%er by age category, right? That's possible with your gym. So how do we get there though, right? What are the percentage benchmarks we need to look at as we grow? Well, different things happen at different stages. You're not going to make 15K a month if your gym's only making 10, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. So we have to look at things from a perspective of what percentage of your income is going towards rent? What percentage of your income is going towards payroll? What percentage of your income is going towards profit? And profitability, in my opinion, a healthy, profitable facility has a profit margin. The lowest possible profit margin that I want any personal training facility to have is 25%. That's the lowest profit margin that I think is reasonable at any point, right? Now, in the very beginning, first couple months, your profit may be 0%, right? We understand this because you have rent costs, marketing costs, and potentially staffing costs that are costing you more than whatever. You're not making anything.
Well, Jimmy, actually, I want to say something about that.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's wrong, my friend. In the sense, like, don't bite off more than you can chew. If you're listening to this and you don't have a facility right now, don't go get a $10,000 a month facility.
Well, that's true.
You know, get yourself a small square footage to start with and do everything yourself. That's what I did. I started out of my garage. My rent was zero.
We both did that, actually.
My rent was zero. I had no rent. I mean, I had my mortgage, but my rent was zero, right? I had no rent. So I had to pay the mortgage regardless, right? So I guess you could say that was my rent, but whatever, neither here nor there. My point is that I worked 70 hours a week hustling to get clients in. And then when I was overwhelmed and full, that's when I moved to a storefront and I had a clientele to do that. You know, you're not going to, if you're thinking about starting a gym right now and you're going out there and you get a $10,000 a month, think about how many people you need to backflow to get that. That's a lot of people right off the jump. That's hard to do. So if you want to do this smartly and profitably, you need to start very, very small, very, very manageable, build up, and move. I'd rather you fill a small facility and explode at the seams and then go get a bigger facility than start with a bigger facility with one person in it. So I think you're probably I was more profitable in the beginning than I am now. I was way more profitable because it was just me doing everything, right? But I wasn't profitable from a time point of view. Right. Now I'm profitable from a money and a time point of view because now I have my gym's basically running itself and I have the freedom to be recording a podcast with you here right now. So it's like you kind of earn that time. You earn that time over time.
and you know, my thought processes are probably a little different now than they were in the beginning because I did it the same way, right? We started our first facility. We don't know what's happening. We're trying to get as little rent as possible so we can actually cover it, right? My first facility was like $2,000 or $3,000 in rent, right? And I already had some clients to backfill that rent. So like when I first started, we were profitable right out of the gate, right? So I guess I'm thinking about it from a perspective of like opening another facility, right? Once you have your first one that's cash flowing and making
that's a totally different story.
Totally different story, right? When you're like bootstrapped, because banks aren't going to give you loans for this, right? We tried. You're not going to get one. So this is going to be a bootstrap kind of environment in the beginning. And like Anthony said, we both did the same thing, right? I didn't start out of a garage. I started out of a commercial space, but same deal, 70-hour weeks, doing it all yourself, getting enough revenue that you can actually hire somebody and still make money, right? Killing yourself long enough to get to the point where now it's time to start hiring some people so you can actually make a living doing this, right? Because if I digress, and you hire some people and you get a giant facility and you build it, they will come kind of thing. You spend all this money on advertising, all stuff, without the structure and the knowledge and the plan to actually make it profitable, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, and you're going to be in the position like a lot of these guys are, where you're making $1,500 a month on a $60K a month facility, right?
Yeah.
Which happens. Like, guys, I mean, I don't mean to be the boogeyman here, but there are guys out there that I know that have facilities that do $60K a month and they take home $1,500, right? It's a scary place to be, because you left your job at the Gold's Gym where you were making 40 or 50K hustling, and now you're making 1,500 a month, and you have all this risk. That's not the position we want you guys in. So after the initial phases, right? We kind of get up, we get our first employee, we get things going, we get a business going, right? You want your profit margin to be somewhere between 30 and 50%. I think that is doable for almost everyone. If you're not there, your staff is too fat, your rent is too high, or your lead costs are too high and you need help with your advertising, right?
Or you're spending money stupidly.
Yes, like Anthony was saying with his P&L, like he looks at his expenses and goes, there's people that are buying all this software, they're paying for coaching programs that aren't actually helping them become profitable, and that's coming out. Like, that's what a lot of coaching programs don't talk to you about, right? There's a cost to the coaching program, right? So if you're not getting that coaching program money back plus, then the coaching program is worthless to you, right? Oh, we'll spend this much on ads. We got like, oh, I'm going to give you all this advice and this business advice and this and that. It's like, if you don't make any more, if you don't make your investment back plus on the coaching program, that's an expense, not an investment, right? So we have to look at all these things and fine-tooth comb all these things in your business. But when we're looking at it, 30 to 50% profit, your rent should be no more than 15% of your top line revenue, if not less than that. 10% is really where we want to be, right? Right now in my business, my rent is like 5% or 6%, right? It wasn't always that way, but if you kind of project it out and you go, okay, if I do 50 grand a month, I can take home these numbers that Anthony and I are talking about, this 15 to 20 grand a month. You can do that, right? So your rent, what you're looking for is about 5 grand, right? Or less in your facility, right? When you're looking at rent costs. In the beginning, it's going to be a lot higher percentage, but over time, it will become that 10 or 15%, right? And then your payroll is going to be dependent on how efficiently you use your staff. But a lot of times with payroll, we're looking at somewhere in that, 20, 30%, something like that. Okay. So that's really what we're looking at from this perspective. So if we got, let's just say, for example, you got 50% profit, you got 30% payroll, you got 10% rent, and then the rest of it, that additional 10%, is knickknacks, bullshit, the $1,500 is going to hit you every month that you never expect. We're talking power, we're talking all these other things that you need to save for a rainy day and that kind of stuff, right? But that's kind of the winning percentages, in my opinion. And they fluctuate a little bit. Sometimes your payroll's a little higher while you're building. Sometimes your profit's a little lower or a little higher. But that's kind of the range. I mean, 30% is a healthy business, but 40, 50, how much better is that?
Yeah. And again, these, like he said, as you scale yourself out of positions, your payroll may be a little bit higher. So maybe your profitability comes down, but still you got to look at what you're taking home. And Jimmy said, if you're, making all this money, but you're taking home nothing, huge issue there. So you need to look at that. And again, if you guys want help in any of this, just click that link below and book your call with us, and we'll gladly hop on and explain to you what we need to change in order to get you taking home that money. So until the next time, my friends, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, and we are out.